Are you the guy that got slapped on video?
I did, but I'll slap it out you though.
Oh, you will?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you the inside of the house.
I'll make you another clip. Don't do that.
Seriously?
Don't do that.
Former UFC fighter Tiki Ghosn didn't just throw an elbow, he detonated one, smashing streamer Deen The Great in the face at a house party hosted by Rampage Jackson in California on February 18, 2026. It was the second time in less than 24 hours Deen had been struck, and somehow, it still wouldn't be the last. The elbow at Rampage's party wasn't random chaos, it was a moment building in plain sight. The footage comes straight from a live stream inside Quentin Rampage Jackson's California mansion, where the music thumped and cameras never blinked. Deen The Great was doing what he always does, streaming live on Kick when he approached Tiki Ghosn, unaware he was stepping into a fuse already burning. What started as words turned sharp, then sharper. The confrontation was captured from the first glance to the final blow. Every sentence, every twitch of the jaw, every second of thickening tension unfolded before Deen's audience in real time, and within minutes the clips were ricocheting across the internet. Ghosn isn't some random guest who lost control. He's a retired MMA veteran who competed in the UFC, Strikeforce, and Bellator over a career stretching more than a decade, compiling a 10-8 professional record forged in violence. He once stood across from Robbie Lawler at UFC 40 and suffered a TKO, sharing the cage with one of the most feared welterweights in MMA history, and on this night, that history resurfaced. He doesn't fight for a living anymore, now he runs an athlete management company, and one of his clients is Rampage Jackson, the reason he was inside that house that night in the first place. Ghosn wasn't hunting for clout, cameras, or chaos. He was there on business. Deen, whose real name is Noordine Shahid Shabazz, lives in a different world, a kick streamer and influencer boxer competing under the Misfits banner, thriving where spectacle blurs with sport. He carried a 7-0 record until December 2025 in Dubai, when Amado Vargas shut that streak down with a unanimous decision. Most of Deen's resume is built on exhibition bouts under the MF and DAZNX series, with only one bout officially stamped as professional by BoxRec, a TKO over Wood Sharks in November 2022. Online, he streams daily, and his formula is simple. Confrontation sells, trash talk spreads, provocation pays. That formula is exactly what steered him toward Ghosn that night. In the clip, Deen strides up with the camera rolling and immediately accuses Ghosn of acting like he doesn't recognize him. It wasn't a question, it was bait. Ghosn answers evenly, measured, almost detached, but Deen keeps pressing, stepping closer, voice rising, repeating himself as if demanding a reaction. The music hums in the background, people linger within earshot, and in seconds the air shifts. What begins as a challenge turns sharp, then hostile, the distance between words and violence shrinking with every breath.
Don't act like you don't know me.
I don't know you.
You definitely know me.
Nice to meet you.
Ghosn's response stayed controlled. He said he didn't know Deen, extended a handshake through the simple words, "Nice to meet you," and left the door open for it to end there. But Deen wasn't there for introductions. In his mind, the script had already been written, and it required friction. He kept pressing, each sentence a deliberate test of Ghosn's restraint. "Don't like your attitude. I don't like your," that was the line in the sand. Ghosn didn't raise his voice, didn't shift his stance. He just made it clear the energy Deen was pushing wouldn't fly. Calm, direct, final. Deen ignored every signal. He shot back instantly, insisting the disrespect went both ways, making it obvious he had no plans to step back. Then the thread tying everything together snapped tight. Ghosn mentioned the Larry Wheel slap from the night before, a clip already flooding timelines by the time this exchange began. He asked Deen about it point blank. Deen admitted Larry Wheels had slapped him, and without hesitation, in the same breath, he threatened to slap Ghosn too, a retired professional MMA fighter who built a career reacting to threats with precision. Ghosn's "Ewell" wasn't confusion. It wasn't disbelief. It was a final checkpoint Deen blew through. Deen escalated again, promising to turn Ghosn into another viral moment, another piece of disposable content. He packaged the threat like entertainment, like clicks were worth the risk. Ghosn answered evenly, seriously, one more time. The warning hung there for a split second. Then the conversation ended.
I don't like your attitude, and I don't like your fucking...
Ghosn didn't lunge or swing wild, he released a short, compact elbow that detonated clean against Deen's face and folded him to his knees. It was tight, efficient, clinical. The kind of strike drilled into muscle memory inside professional MMA camps, not improvised in living rooms for attention. There was no wasted motion, no theatrics, just impact. Gasps ripped through the room. In the background, someone's voice cut through the music. "Look at this, look at this." Deen's legs gave out as the reality of it landed. And Ghosn? He didn't swarm, didn't posture, didn't chase a finish. He delivered one shot and turned his back, walking away like a man who understands exactly how little force is required when you truly know how to use it. The situation had crossed a line, and in a second, it was over. Deen staggered upright, dazed, but people stepped in before pride could spark a sequel. Within hours, the clip flooded X, Instagram, and TikTok feeds. A Happy Punch repost alone surged past 4 million views and stacked over 51,000 likes. Then came the longer 3-minute upload from Rex Cult Clips, laying out every word of the exchange so viewers could trace the tension from the first greeting to the final elbow. Context didn't slow the spread, it fueled it. But this wasn't where Deen's week unraveled. The party incident was only chapter 2. Less than 24 hours earlier, earlier, on a completely different livestream, another confrontation had already dragged his name into headlines for reasons he couldn't spin. And that thread leads straight to Larry Wheels' wife, to the slap that set everything in motion. The night before the elbow, February 17, 2026, Deen The Great showed up on another Rampage Jackson livestream, this one framed as a laid-back double date. Larry Wheels and his wife Shayla were invited guests. It was supposed to be casual, just friends hanging out live on Kick for entertainment. Instead, with Deen visibly drinking throughout the night, the tone shifted. What began as playful conversation slowly curdled into something tense, then uncomfortable, then openly reckless. Over the span of an hour, it stopped being a group dynamic and turned into one man repeatedly crossing lines no one else was willing to cross. Larry Wheels is no random personality. With over 2.8 million Instagram followers, he's built a massive presence in the fitness world through powerlifting, bodybuilding, and a strikingly transparent personal life. He has no official fighting record, but physically he's imposing, towering, dense, the kind of presence that fills a room without effort. Shayla has appeared beside him in content for years, their relationship woven directly into the public story he shares with his audience. Disrespecting her on camera, in front of him, in a crowded room, was never going to slide. From early in the stream, Deen locked his attention on Shayla, repeated compliments, calling her attractive, leaning closer each time he spoke. At one point, he asked her for a hug right in front of Larry. The room stiffened. Rampage Jackson stepped in, warning Deen directly not to disrespect Larry. Others echoed it. The warnings came again and again. Deen ignored every single one.
Are you the guy that got slapped on video?
I did, but I'll slap it out you though.
Okay, I'm going to show you the inside of the house.
I'll make you another clip. Don't do that.
Seriously?
Don't do that.
That single request detonated the mood instantly. Asking for a hug midstream, in front of thousands watching live, wasn't playful, it was a line crossed in bright lights. Rampage and others tried to pull it back with words, but the temperature in the room had already changed. Laughter thinned out, smiles tightened. It became clear Deen wasn't leaning into a bit for content. He was actively ignoring boundaries being drawn right in front of him, and the atmosphere started tilting towards something irreversible. That's when Rampage stepped forward for real. A former UFC light heavyweight champion, a man forged in pressure and chaos, fixed his eyes on Deen and told him plainly to stop. No theatrics, no jokes, just a warning. Deen answered with denial. He insisted he wasn't disrespecting anyone, framed the hug as harmless, shrugged at the tension like it was imaginary, and then he kept pushing past the tone shift, past the direct warning, past the obvious discomfort spreading through the room. He dismissed the backlash entirely, called it fake, waved off the concern, and repeated the hug request as if repetition could rewrite reality. Each time he doubled down, the air grew heavier. Across from him, Larry Wheels said almost nothing. He didn't need to. He watched, quiet, still, taking in every word, every lean-in, every boundary flattened without hesitation. The stream kept rolling, the viewers kept watching, and the silence from Larry wasn't passive, it was building. The patience Larry Wheels showed throughout that stretch is exactly why what followed landed like a shockwave physically and in the court of public opinion. For nearly an hour he absorbed it, silent, controlled, letting the warnings circulate. Then Deen escalated again. He stopped implying and started declaring. The comments about Shayla sharpened, stripped of any plausible deniability. Deen mumbled about respect, but whatever version of respect he claimed to represent unraveled in real time. Seconds later, he crossed the final line. On a live broadcast watched by thousands, Deen the Great stated outright that Larry Wheels' wife was up for grabs. It wasn't framed as a joke. There was no punchline waiting behind it. He said it plainly, and the stream preserved every syllable. That was the moment the night locked into place. Larry had heard enough. The composure that defined his entire evening snapped shut. In one clean motion, Larry Wheels delivered a heavy open-hand slap that blasted Deen backward and out of frame. The crack echoed through the microphones. Rampage burst into laughter. The room erupted in noise and movement. Deen staggered, stunned, eyes unfocused, balance gone, needing help as he was steered toward the exit. Larry didn't pursue, didn't posture. He stayed planted, calm again, saying he'd been waiting for that moment all night, and the tone in his voice made it clear he meant every second of it. The aftermath didn't fade off camera, it unfolded in real time. Deen teared up on the stream, visibly rattled, trying to process the slap that had just echoed across the room and the internet simultaneously. He refused to apologize, firing back by calling Larry an inverted man and a coward, but the words felt hollow against what viewers had just seen. Security escorted him to a van while the cameras kept rolling, and within minutes the clip was everywhere. X, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Loop, slowed down, dissected. The Times of India ran a full breakdown of the incident. TMZ amplified it on TikTok, pushing it deeper into mainstream feeds. Larry Wheels later addressed it bluntly. The slap felt really good after enduring disrespect all night. He even added that he'd slap his way to the top if he had to. That was February 17th. Less than 24 hours later, Deen walked into Rampage's house party and caught a sharp elbow from Tiki. The The timing was brutal, almost cinematic, and the internet wasted no time connecting the dots. Reaction was immediate, ruthless, and overwhelmingly one-sided. On X, Deen the Great turned into the punchline of the day, twice. Worst 24 hours ever echoed through thread after thread as users stitched together both clips like a highlight reel that only escalated. The topic trended fast, powered by fight accounts, commentary pages, and influencer watchdogs reposting every angle. A happy punch upload of the Ghosn elbow, a 78-second burst, surged past 4 million views and stacked over 51,000 likes. Even No Jumper's repost alone cleared 26,000 likes. Every major fight commentary account across X, Instagram, and TikTok grabbed at least one of the clips, most ran both, and the numbers kept surging hour by hour. What made it explode wasn't just impact, it was structure. Slapped one night, elbowed the next. The dual nature of it gave the story a brutal narrative arc that single viral mishaps rarely achieve. This wasn't a random embarrassment, it felt like a 24-hour documentary on cause and effect, unfolding in real time with receipts. The MMA community didn't hesitate in its reaction. Ghosn's elbow was dissected and largely praised as textbook fight IQ. Commenters broke down the mechanics, the tight rotation, the compact delivery, the efficiency. It was a strike honed through years inside the UFC, Strikeforce, and Bellator system, drilled thousands of times in real camps against real opposition. For someone who once stood across from Robbie Lawler, reacting under pressure isn't emotional, it's instinctive. To many observers, dropping an intoxicated streamer at a crowded party wasn't escalation. It was muscle memory firing cleanly the second a boundary turned physical. Across MMA forums and fight analysis pages, the consensus hardened quickly. Deen had pushed a trained fighter past repeated warnings and learned, instantly and publicly, what happens when the other person decides the conversation has ended. In a space where words are currency, he gambled against experience, and experience cashed in. Deen's own response to the Ghosn and elbow incidents only made matters worse. He posted the clip himself on X, captioning it, "Exufering me for the clip knowing I'm intoxicated. Might bet." The post framed the elbow as if it were clip farming, suggesting Ghosn only struck because cameras were rolling and Deen happened to be drunk. The post snagged over 5,000 likes, but the replies were brutal. Followers and critics tore into him, pointing out that Deen had escalated first, threatened to slap Ghosn, and even said he would make another viral clip. The intoxication defense landed with zero sympathy. Being drunk doesn't erase a direct threat to a retired UFC fighter. If anything, people argued, it made the threat more reckless, the outcome inevitable. The bet at the end of his caption hinted at a rematch or retaliation, which the internet shredded. Users reminded him repeatedly he had already challenged a trained fighter, ended up on his knees, and daring the same man again wasn't bravery, it was a failure to register what had just happened. That phrase quickly became the unofficial tagline of both incidents, appearing in thousands of replies across every post involving Deen, from the happy punch clip to his own tweet. It distilled the consensus. Deen created both crises himself. He disrespected Larry Wheels' wife and got slapped. He threatened Tiki Ghosn and got elbowed. The internet treated it as a two-part lesson in consequences, the only debate being which clip was more satisfying to watch. On Larry Wheels' side, the reaction was equally lopsided, vindicating his restraint and timing and cementing Deen as the subject of instant ridicule. Users hailed the slap as both justified and classy, a paradox that only made sense once the full context of Deen's behavior was visible. Clips showing the entire build-up circulated rapidly, each one reinforcing the narrative that Larry Wheels had shown patience far beyond what most people would tolerate. Sitting through an entire evening of someone openly flirting with his wife on camera, declaring she was up for grabs, and still responding with an open hand slap rather than a closed fist framed Larry as controlled, measured, and deliberate. Across social media, that restraint was celebrated as skillful rather than aggressive. Combined viral posts from both incidents, Deen getting slapped and then elbowed by Tiki Ghosn, racked up over 50,000 likes and dominated MMA and streaming feeds throughout the day. But the scrutiny didn't end with those two confrontations. Once Deen's name started trending, people began digging into his history, and what they uncovered only added fuel to the fire. The slap, the elbow, and Deen's escalating antics were not isolated events. Patterns emerged showing a consistent tendency toward provocation, boundary pushing, and viral content at the expense of real-world consequences. Every new clip unearthed, every old post resurfaced, seemed to confirm what viewers were already seeing. Deen's latest missteps were the predictable culmination of a history steeped in controversy, a chain reaction that had been waiting for a spark, and the internet was all too happy to witness it ignite. Deen the Great's record of confrontational behavior stretches far beyond the Ghosn and elbow incidents. Years of boundary-crossing antics, professional misconduct, and provocation had been quietly building, and when the viral clips hit, seasoned followers of influencer boxing and streaming culture recognized a pattern finally colliding with consequence in the most public and physically humiliating way possible. The scandal preceding February 2026 had occurred at the Misfits boxing press conference in Dubai in December 2025, ahead of his bout with Amado Vargas, son of boxing legend Fernando Vargas. Vargas. During that event, Deen aimed misogynistic remarks at Vargas's mother, Martha, who was seated in the audience. He told her to stay out of this. Go make a quesadilla, you fat, repeating the line and adding, you in Dubai, go in the kitchen. When called out, Deen defended the comments with a crude logic. You go low, we go lower. It was an eye for an eye justification, but it only magnified the backlash. Some attempted to chalk it up as standard trash talk typical of influencer boxing press events, but many others saw it as a boundary crossed too far, a line no entertainer should breach. The fallout didn't end there. When Deen stepped into the ring, he lost by unanimous decision, marking his first professional defeat, an outcome that felt almost symbolic after his public antics. In hindsight, the Dubai press conference became a prelude to the February 2026 chaos, repeated provocations, disregard for consequences, and a career built on spectacle finally catching up to him in real time, with both reputation and body taking the brunt of the reckoning. And the Dubai trip became far more infamous for Deen's words than his performance in the ring. That loss to Vargas carried fallout that stretched well beyond a single fight. In the months leading up to it, Deen had already been stripped of his MFB lightweight title for refusing to face mandatory challenger Lil Crackra, who had earned the shot through a tournament. He faced accusations of attempting to fight Adam Salai outside his Misfits boxing contract, deceiving streamer Aiden Ross about his contractual status while signing with him, and trying to negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal with Most Valuable Promotions, Jake Paul's company, despite still being bound to Misfits. On a DAZN broadcast, he went further, publicly calling Misfits CEO KSI garbage and insinuating connections with Jake Paul. Taken together, these actions painted a portrait of a fighter who prioritized clout over commitment, treated contractual obligations as obstacles to be sidestepped, and repeatedly burned bridges with the very organizations that had given him his platform. Professional recklessness alone would have raised eyebrows, but compounded with years of unverified allegations of domestic violence, Deen's reputation became a lightning rod for scrutiny. Each misstep layered atop the last, creating a pattern, escalation, provocation, and public controversy woven into the narrative of his career. The Dubai press conference, the lost fight, the title stripping, the contract disputes, they weren't isolated blips. They were the prelude, a history of miscalculated risk and boundary-crossing behavior that set the stage for the viral, painful consequences he would face in February 2026. A YouTube video titled The Deen The Great allegations amplified long-standing controversy, featuring an ex-girlfriend accusing him of physical assault and claiming she filed a police report after he allegedly struck her with a 1-2 punch during an argument. According to the video, the accuser said she usually avoids exposing people publicly but felt compelled to speak out because of the severity of the incident. As of February 2026, no confirmed legal outcomes have been reported, and the details remain unverified. Deen himself has addressed similar claims on X multiple times. In March 2025, he posted, "SMFH been through it, bro. Once a girl gets cops involved, you got to let her go. They ruin an entire empire with one false claim." In May 2025, he labeled the allegations fake, claiming images were photoshopped. In November 2025, he posted again, describing enduring false claims as the worst feeling. Adding to the murk, a woman identified as Logi defended him on X in August 2023, stating she was his ex-girlfriend and insisting Deen never raised his voice or touched her. Without confirmed arrests, charges, or lawsuits, these allegations remain in the domain of public accusation and denial, yet they have undeniably contributed to the cloud of scrutiny surrounding Deen's public life. Layered atop his professional controversies and viral incidents, these claims feed into a narrative of repeated boundary pushing, creating a persistent pattern of public and personal turbulence that has followed him for years and continues to color perception whenever new controversies emerge. When the Ghosn and Wheels videos exploded across social media in February 2026, every related thread resurfaced like a wildfire, reigniting old tinder. Users dug through timelines, unearthed old posts, and wove together a narrative of a man whose provocative behavior had been escalating for years with little consequence, until now. The two physical confrontations didn't exist in isolation. They became the climax of a story the internet had been watching unfold in slow motion, piece by piece, for years. And suddenly, it all collided within a single 24-hour window, a perfect storm of escalation, consequence, and viral exposure. So what comes next? As of February 18, 2026, no legal charges have been filed in connection with either the Larry Wheel slap or the Tiki Ghosn elbow. Both incidents appear contained. No arrests, no lawsuits, no formal complaints made public. In the world of influencer boxing and streaming culture, that's far from unusual. These clashes live in a gray space where real-world confrontation and content creation constantly bleed into one another, and participants often treat the aftermath as fodder for the next stream rather than a matter for the courts. For Deen the Great, the immediate fallout is reputational and brutal. The back-to-back clips have solidified him as the poster child for a very specific internet cautionary tale. The man who pushes boundaries relentlessly, only to have those boundaries push back violently, and then, astonishingly, attempts the same reckless behavior again the very next day. Deen's own attempts to control the narrative have done little to change how the story reads online. The "I'd bet" caption on his post about the ghost and elbow hinted at future retaliation, but the internet treated it as empty posturing from someone who had already been dropped once and slapped once within a single day. His framing of the elbow as clip farming because he was intoxicated fell flat. Almost every commenter who saw the full footage rejected it outright. The full clips reveal Deen as the instigator, the one who approached Ghosn, escalated the tension, and explicitly threatened violence before violence ever reached him. Layered atop his already tumultuous boxing career, complicated by the December 2025 loss to Amado Vargas and the stripping of his MFB lightweight title, these incidents now carry the additional weight of two viral humiliations unrelated to sanctioned competition. His public reputation, already fragile, has been amplified as a cautionary tale of escalation and consequence. No upcoming fights have been announced as of this date, and his official record in influencer boxing remains 7-1. But in the court of internet opinion, the tally of viral blows, both literal and metaphorical, has already been rendered, cementing Deen the Great as a figure whose choices, misjudgments, and provocations were caught in real time, replayed endlessly, and judged mercilessly. With his only fight officially recognized by BoxRec being the November 2022 TKO win over Wood Sharks at the Moody Center in Austin, Texas, the Misfits boxing landscape continues to shift, and whether Deen can rebuild credibility after these incidents, combined with his history of contract disputes, strip titles, and press conference scandals, remains an open question only time and his own choices will answer. For Larry Wheels, the episode seems to have bolstered his public standing. His patience throughout an evening of escalating disrespect, followed by a single, decisive open hand slap, was widely framed as measured restraint turned justified action. His post-incident remarks, including that the slap felt really good and that he'd slapped my way to the top, were interpreted as confident rather than aggressive. The fitness and combat sports communities rallied behind him, turning the incident into an enhancement of his personal brand. He protected his wife's dignity on camera, and the internet rewarded him for it. For Tiki Ghosn, the elbow reignited attention toward a fighter who had largely faded from mainstream MMA discussions since retirement. His cage career was modest but legitimate, spanning UFC, Strikeforce, and Bellator, with UFC 40 against Robbie Lawler as a standout bout, and the clip reminded viewers that instinctive, precise technique from years of professional training doesn't vanish when gloves are hung up. The MMA community responded with a mix of amusement and respect, noting Ghosn's timing and accuracy as the product of extensive fight camp drilling. His current management role with Rampage Jackson keeps him behind the scenes, but that evening the cameras found him again, and the results went viral. The broader story reflects years of the influencer boxing and streaming world escalating toward this collision, when online provocation meets real-world physical consequence, captured live for all to see. Deen the Great built a brand on being loud, confrontational, and unapologetic, disrespecting opponents' mothers at press conferences, dodging contractual obligations, flirting with a married woman on stream, and within 24 hours the consequences caught up to him twice. The footage has been viewed millions of times, memes have spread, and the narrative has been cemented by every repost. Whether Deen uses this as a turning point or continues down the same reckless path will determine if these 24 hours were a wake-up call or just the latest chapter in a story that keeps spiraling.